Hello, you are watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll discuss the global situation as of June 20th, 2025. A large number of events took place today, so let's get started. In today's overview, we'll cover the situation in Ukraine along the line of contact. There are some very interesting developments. Today, the Russian army managed to significantly improve its positions in the Kupiansk sector, the Constantinovka sector, and there are also very intriguing updates coming from the area near the settlement of Hulyai Pole, which is part of the Zaporizhzhia direction. In the second part of this video, we'll also talk about the latest updates regarding the Israel-Iran conflict. The Americans have still not entered the fighting, and there is a very high probability that they won't get involved at all. At this point, there is a version suggesting that the US has decided to postpone its decision to start military action by another 2 weeks. Well then, let's go step by step. We begin with the prisoner exchange. Today, another round of prisoner exchanges between the Russian Federation and Ukraine took place. Let me remind you that this exchange is part of the agreements reached in Istanbul on June 2nd, 2025. And today, just like during previous exchanges under this negotiation process, neither the Russian Ministry of Defense nor the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense provided any figures on how many soldiers were returned to Russian territory or to Ukraine. This is an interesting point. We previously assumed that this secrecy is primarily related to the fact that this is no ordinary prisoner exchange based on formulas or lists. What is happening now appears to be an all-for-all exchange. That is, all Russian prisoners of war and all Ukrainian prisoners of war are being exchanged. It seems that this process will continue for another 1 or 2 days, during which the full return of all POWs will be completed. Next, we move to the Sumy sector of the front, where, according to some cartographers and experts, the armed forces of the Russian Federation are continuing their advance toward the city of Sumy. However, in terms of mapping, there are almost no changes today, except for one small correction, possibly even in favor of the armed forces of Ukraine. Overall, it seems that the Russian army has halted, completely and decisively halted, or at least paused for now. If we take a look at the map, there is a small adjustment in the area of the village of Vorochino. Today, an independent cartographer reported that the Ukrainian side regrouped along its second defensive line and carried out a series of successful counterattacks. As a result of one of these counterattacks, they managed to regain control over the small two-street village of Vorochino, located between Yablunivka and Novomikhailivka. If we look at the map, since the beginning of the Russian offensive, there has not been a single official statement from the Russian Ministry of Defense, nor any video evidence confirming control over Vorochino. Only a few cartographers and military experts had marked it as Russian-controlled. Therefore, today we're essentially remarking the grey zone in favor of the armed forces of Ukraine. Still, this is yet another signal, perhaps to Russian units and observers of the situation, that the Russian advance has paused. Why this is happening is hard to say, but we assume the Russian army is currently on hold in the Sumy direction, awaiting reinforcements from North Korea. Let me remind you that in the near future, North Korean engineering units and sappers are expected to arrive in the Sudzha district of Kursk Oblast. They will have a lot of work ahead. And apparently, the Russian military clearly understands that moving further south towards Sumy and the vast Sumy forest makes no sense without engineering units and sappers. These specialists are needed to prepare safe routes for troop movement and to build various structures and barriers to improve logistics and ensure the safety of Russian forces. We will return to this topic later today because we have some very interesting footage related to these constructions. Moving on now to the Kupiansk direction. Today, the most important, interesting and intriguing news is coming from the Kupiansk front. In its latest bulletin, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that Russian forces have cleared and taken full control of the settlement of Moskovka. If we look at current Ukrainian maps, this settlement no longer exists under that name. Ukrainians have renamed Moskovka to Mirova. It's located to the northwest of the town of Kupiansk. At the time I started preparing this video, there were no published videos showing Russian soldiers planting Russian flags in various parts of this settlement. So it remains unclear exactly where Russian units are now. Only the Russian Ministry of Defense likely has that information. Still, this is very important. If this information is confirmed and video evidence is published, then we can essentially state as a fact that Kupiansk's defense has completely collapsed. The front didn't just give way, it fell apart from the Ukrainian side. Their defense couldn't hold, and in the near future, we may start seeing footage of Ukrainian units retreating from what could become an encirclement in the Kupiansk agglomeration. Here is the map you're seeing on your screen now. It shows the situation in the Kupiansk direction as of the end of June 1925. Russian units are currently securing positions in the area of Kondrashivka, at least according to certain objective control footage. Just yesterday, we received footage showing Russian soldiers moving around and raising a flag in the southwestern part of Kondrashivka. This is the moment when Russian troops raised the flag in this settlement. I remind you that the village of Radkivka is still considered a grey zone, as it remains unclear whether Russian troops have fully cleared the area or not, despite the Ministry of Defense announcing its capture about a month ago. And we can observe a large cloud over the area of Mirova and the northwestern part of Kupiansk. That cloud represents a large area that remains under Ukrainian control. And today, a major news development came from the Russian Ministry of Defense. It announced that Russian forces have cleared this entire pocket and fully secured it. Of course, everyone is now waiting for video confirmation so that the words of the ministry are backed not just by statements, but by actual footage. Ideally 3 or 4 clips showing Russian soldiers raising flags in different parts of this settlement. Still, even in the absence of such footage for now, we can speculate a bit, and we can say that, as previously suggested, the defense of Kupiansk has completely collapsed. This is now a partial encirclement. Kupiansk is surrounded from the north, northwest, northeast, east, southeast, and south. Only a few roads and supply routes remain under Ukrainian control. Let's highlight them on the map for clarity. Here is the first road, the H-26 highway from Kharkiv toward Kupiansk. This route is still passable, but everything depends on the exact location of the Russian forward positions. The settlement of Moskovka, for instance, includes farms in the east, parts of the village along the railway, and stretches southward toward the H-26. We're talking about the very last street there. The second supply route runs from Kupiansk through the village of Osinova, southwest toward Senyok, and then continues along rural roads and fields toward places like Baranova, then to Vesele, and from there either to Izium or northwest back toward Kharkiv. But in any case, based on the Ministry of Defense report, it now seems the distance between Russian frontline positions and the H-26 highway is down to just 3 kilometers. That distance is negligible for drones, mortars, and artillery. This means the route is now under full fire control. In effect, one of the key supply lines for the Ukrainian armed forces has already been compromised. It's likely that soon we'll begin receiving a lot of footage showing destroyed Ukrainian equipment. Naturally, the next logical question is, what will the Russian army do next? Russian forces might attempt to penetrate directly into Kupiansk's urban defense, advancing into the city and cutting off the salient located between Moskovka, or Mirova, as renamed by Ukraine, and the Oskil River, heading further toward Holubivka, Petropavlivka, and Sinkivka. If that salient is cut, Russian positions will be significantly strengthened and expanded. But again, further advances into Kupiansk itself are likely impossible without expanding control northward, along the railway towards settlements like Tishchenkivka, and even farther into Velika Shapkivka and Mala Shapkivka. There is a high probability that before storming Kupiansk, Russian forces will move north to secure their flanks and prevent a Ukrainian counterattack from areas like Vovchansk. Russian troops will also likely move further toward the H-26 highway to improve their positions and potentially cross it physically. There is a key strategic asset along this road, a small forest area near the village of Sobolivka. If Russian forces secure this woodland, it would signal the complete collapse of Kupiansk's defensive capability and that of the entire Kupiansk agglomeration. However, even if the H-26 is eventually cut, the southern route along the R-79 highway remains. A few weeks ago, reports indicated that Ukrainian authorities had evacuated the villages of Berezivka, Baranove, Spodubivka, Duvanka, Fedorivka, Vorontsivka, and Senok. These settlements have been evacuated as of today, Ukrainian troops are likely deployed there now with the primary objective of holding this last supply route via R-79 as long as possible, to supply the Kupiansk region with ammunition, provisions and weapons, and maintain the Oskil River bridgehead for as long as they can. Still, from the current configuration, it's clear that a northern advance alone is not enough. I am certain that very soon we will see attempts by Russian units to cross the Oskil River near areas like Kruhlakivka and Sinkivka, to push southward into Kupiansk and move toward highways R26, R79 and H26, particularly along R79. So we await further developments. There is a very high chance that something major will occur in this direction. If the Oskil River is crossed and Russian forces gain control of Sinkov and approach the village of Pratistin, the full encirclement of the Ukrainian garrison in the Kupiansk area becomes a real possibility, especially for the portion located on the Russian side of the Oskil. By the way, just before the Ministry of Defense announced the clearing of the previously discussed settlement, reports came in that Ukrainian forces had begun evacuating the eastern part of the city. This includes repair shops, facilities and equipment used to maintain combat readiness. So, we await updates, geolocations. If this information is confirmed from multiple independent sources, we can begin the countdown for the collapse of the entire Kupiansk agglomeration. Now let's move to the Constantinovka direction, where numerous updates are also coming in. In the southeastern area, near the Siversky Donets-Donbass Canal, these have been the first 24 hours in the last 5 to 6 days, with almost no reports from that sector. Yesterday marked the end of the first stage of offensives in this area, where Russian troops successfully cut off the salient between the settlements of Andriivka, Zelenyi High, Kurdyumivka, Severne, southern Dilevka, and on toward Druzhba. That pocket was eliminated. Many strongholds came under Russian control. Currently, Russian forces are focused on striking Ukrainian positions in the fields between Oleksandro-Shultine and Bila Hora. The assault here hasn't begun yet. Preparatory operations are ongoing. After FPV drone strikes, the ground offensive will likely follow. Next, we move to the Kupansk pocket. A cauldron, or at least operational encirclement, of the Ukrainian garrison appears to have formed here. It covers Kupansk, Katarinivka, Novospaska, and Sherbinivka. Few are discussing this yet, as maps still allow people to imagine different scenarios. But if we return to geolocation and facts, specific points where action is happening, then this enclave has already lost any connection to the main territory. New objective control footage shows a Ukrainian vehicle moving within Kupansk, and it is being targeted. A Russian drone calmly hovers above, searching for new targets or positions. Northwest along the T-0516 road from Toretsk to Konstantinovka, more footage shows Russian forces striking Ukrainian strongholds near these key logistical arteries. Everything seems under firm control from the north and northeast. In the northwest, the situation is similar. Over the H20 highway, Ukrainian strongpoints are being scouted by Russian drones in search of vulnerable entry points for explosive attacks. This road is now essentially under Russian control, and sending reinforcements toward Katarinivka and Kupansk would be suicidal. Such operations now have almost no chance of success. Meanwhile, Russian units are expanding their foothold in the southern part of Oleksandr Kalinov. Just yesterday, Russian troops entered the settlement. Footage shows several vehicles advancing into Oleksandr Kalinov, not just motorcycles or recon saboteurs, but armored vehicles and assault troops who dismount while advancing and secure positions as the convoy moves. This is a full-scale assault. These scenes were recorded in the southern part of the settlement, where recent geolocated footage confirms new Russian control zones. Yesterday, we saw initial territorial gains mapped, and today some cartographers have already begun expanding those shaded areas further. But the story doesn't end there. Today we're seeing major updates in the southwestern part of Yablunivka. Russian sources have published new footage showing assault units entering from both the west and the south. From the west, Russian motorcyclists rapidly advanced deep into the settlement, reaching its center and securing positions. Simultaneously, from the south, armored vehicles approached anti-tank ditches, and airborne troops dismounted to secure key locations in the southwest. The assault from two directions suggests that Ukrainian defenses in western and central Yablunivka are beginning to crack. We may see further map adjustments soon. Overall, the battle for the Kleban-Bik pocket appears to be nearing its end and is likely to conclude with a full encirclement of Ukrainian forces along the Kryvyi Torets River and the railway. Time for a successful Ukrainian withdrawal is running out, if it's even still possible. Moving to the H-32 highway sector, while Ukrainian cartographers published minor changes today, the most important updates are coming from a specific square on the map, where a large number of geolocated strikes have been recorded, mainly along key supply roads. Footage released today shows Russian forces using Geran drones to strike several bridges in the area, significantly disrupting logistics along Ukraine's second defensive line. At least 3 to 4 bridges were destroyed, including one over the Kozynyi Torets River near the village of Pankivka, and 2 more in Shakov and Volodymyrivka. These strikes have isolated several settlements, including Volodymyrivka and Shakov, cutting them off from supply lines. This indicates that the Russian army may soon advance toward this fragmented front line, targeting settlements like Novotoretske, Popiv Yar, Poltavka, and Rusin Yar. We expect major combat operations here shortly. Further north, drone strikes were observed in the area of Sofiivka and Pryutne, hitting Ukrainian drone operator positions and communications infrastructure, likely in preparation for a ground push. If Russia manages to break through toward the second line of defense between the Pokrovsk agglomeration and Druzhkivka, it would be a significant development. Meanwhile, Ukraine is trying to strengthen its positions. New footage from the Dobropilia area shows Ukrainian troops installing large anti-drone mesh structures over key roads, designed to block fiber optic guided drones and preserve military equipment and supply lines. These are serious installations, being built by full teams of soldiers with specialized equipment. And that's all for today, friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Take care.